Alright, let's get started. Welcome everyone. I'm Candace Breyer, Chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a 9-person volunteer citizen board appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the City Council. Our procedure this evening is as follows. First, we will hear from the Planning and Development Services Unit, represented tonight by John Barrett. Then the petitioner or his or her representative will make his or her presentation. Petitioners will have 5 minutes in which to make their presentations. The board members may ask questions of either the city or the petitioner. We will acknowledge any written comments received by the board. We will allow an appearing party to express their support or objections. The board will discuss the appeal and formulate a resolution to approve the appeal. 5 affirmative votes of the board will be required for an appeal to be granted. Finally, any qualified party who is aggrieved by a decision of the board can appeal that decision to the Washtenaw County Circuit Court on a timely basis. Roll call. I am here. Mike Daniel.
Here.
Dave DeVarty.
Here.
Mike Dobmeyer.
Here.
Nicole Eisenman. Todd Grant.
Here.
Heather Lewis.
Here.
Julie Weatherby.
Here.
Kirk Westfall.
Here.
We have a quorum. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Do I have any changes to the agenda or motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support, or motion by Dave, support from Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the October meeting. Any comments on those, corrections? Or a motion to approve those minutes?
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, do we have a motion? Kirk, support?
Support.
From Dave, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to hearings and appeals. We have ZBA 17-031, 621 Madison Place. John?
Okay, my name is John Barrett, I'm zoning coordinator for the city of Ann Arbor. Tonight's first case is ZBA case 17-031. The address is 621 Madison Place. Lana Solomon, property owner, is requesting a variance from chapter 55 zoning, section 5:28, area height and placement regulations. Applicant is seeking to construct a 13-foot by 18-foot addition to the rear of the existing residence that will be 20 feet from the rear property line. The property is zoned R1C and requires a rear yard setback of 30 feet. Therefore, a 10-foot variance will be required. The property is zoned R1C, single-family residential, and is located between South 7th Street and Eberwhite Elementary School. The home was built in 1948 and is approximately 1,224 square feet in size. The new addition will contain an entryway and mudroom, along with a dining area for an approximate total of 260 square feet on the first floor. The second floor will be 125 square feet and will accommodate a new closet for an existing bedroom and a new bathtub for an existing bathroom. The combined square footage of both floors will be approximately 385 square feet. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors, the first slide is the location map. You see the subject property. It's highlighted right in the center of the map, and it's just west of South 7th Street. Next slide is the aerial of the surrounding conditions, the neighborhood and properties, and the next slide is a zoomed-in aerial photo of the subject property. Next slide is a site plan showing the existing conditions. You see the wood deck that is existing right here, and that is to be demolished. And you see the existing 30-foot rear setback, the dashed line, and there's approximately 3 to 4 feet between that 30-foot setback line and the rear of the house. Next slide is the proposal of the addition as it relates to the new requested setback of 20 feet. And you see the 13 feet wide, or 13 feet wide by, or long length by 18-foot wide addition in this area right here. Next slide is the existing conditions showing, or it's an aerial of the proposal.
Yeah, with the rain garden and the fence.
And, yep, with the rain garden and the fence.
Existing fence.
Next slide is the elevations of the existing conditions. More existing conditions. This is the rear setback, and that's the front setback where those arrows are. That's the vertical elevation. And that's the front of the house, and this is the area where the new addition will be, and this is the existing vertical elevation. This is the floor plan of the proposed addition. You can see the addition would be right here. And you see this says mudroom. It's hard for me to read this far back tonight. I don't have monitors either, so bear with me. And that's the mudroom entry, and that's the dining. And this is the second floor, and I believe that's the addition to the bathroom, and this is the addition to the closet area. And this is the vertical section showing the proposed addition. That's the elevation of the proposed addition. This is the elevation looking to the south.
Looking from the south.
Looking from the south at the house. Next elevation is looking from the east towards the back of the house. And was the elevation what it would look like with the addition. Next slides are renderings that were submitted by the applicant about what the existing conditions in the house and how it relates to the property. That's the proposed addition in the white. Another view of the proposed addition in the white as it relates to the rear of the house and the detached garage to the left. More angles and photos of it. These are the photos that I took when I was at the property. This is looking down the driveway at the detached garage. This is the rear of the yard, and that's the deck. Rear of the house. The rear yard. Adjacent property, detached garage, left side of the house. This is looking directly to the rear property at the abutting property's neighbors. You can see the dense foliage. This is looking at the property from the street. You can see that it has a sloping topography in the front yard. And to the adjacent property owners, just more of the front yard. This is a photo that was submitted by the applicant as well, directly towards the rear yard in the area from the deck and where the proposed addition would be. That's the end of staff's presentation. If there's any questions, I'll take them at this time.
Mike?
John, are there any kind of restrictions on how far back, like if this variance is approved, could they add that same deck going back? Is there any restriction on the deck, on a new deck?
Great question, and that's something that keeps coming up, and I've gotten clarification from our city attorney's office. We can customize this as, we always say, purpose submitted plans. In the motion that I've written tonight, you can limit that variance to this 18-foot wide. In other words, let's say the variance, if the variance was to be granted, it's a 10-foot variance, which would be all the way across the property lines. You can say we can approve a motion that would limit it to an 18-foot width. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I was specifically
Going
talking
all
about,
the way
like,
across.
if we approve this, then could they just add another deck that goes even further?
Oh, a deck. Okay, I'm sorry.
Like,
Yes.
they have this deck right now, right? Could they just push that back so it's even closer to the
They
property
could.
line?
They could, because decks
Okay.
are accessory structures.
Yeah.
And decks can go up to 3 feet from the property lines,
Okay.
side and rear, just like the garage right here. I'm not sure if the applicants have plans in doing that. You can ask the applicants, but the deck does not have to meet that rear setback.
Okay, thanks.
Kirk?
Thanks. I'm looking at this schematic that shows the setbacks, the mortgage survey, I guess, and shows you all the setbacks.
Existing?
Yes.
That one right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to my reading of that, there's room that doesn't require variance to expand either.
Only from the rear of the existing house right now where the cursor is, 3
Yeah.
feet in.
Okay. And how about to the side?
No, because they have a 5-foot side yard.
How about to the other side?
Over here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then that would be block access to on their driveway and their detached garage.
How wide is the drive, roughly?
It's probably at least 10 feet, about 10 feet wide.
10 to 12.
10 to 12, yeah.
And I'll hold my other question, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
How far beyond the existing wood deck is the proposed addition going? Do we know?
I can answer that.
Yeah, you might want to
Okay.
ask that.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
applicant that.
We'll wait until then.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, if you could state your name for the record and sign in, you'll have 5 minutes.
And this is the 1784?
17031.
17. Okay, thank you. Hi. My name's Lana Solomon, and I'm the homeowner, and this is Casey Valit, and he is potentially going to be our contractor. My husband and I have been living in this house for about 9 years, and we also have 2 sons who are ages 3 and 5. We love our neighborhood. We love our neighbors. Our neighbors love us enough to write you letters. We have 4 neighbors that wrote letters in support. 3 of them are abutting neighbors, so both of our next door neighbors and the neighbor on the other side of the fence all wrote letters saying that they've seen these plans and that they have no concerns about the plans. We really want to make these renovations to help our growing family. We want to stay where we are, near the elementary school. Right now, we have a tiny little kitchen, and we use the rear entry because there's a steep slope and it's a long walk from the garage to the front of the house. And right now, the back door goes right into our little galley kitchen. And so we really want to make these improvements for the safety of our family and for the comfort of our family to really be able to enter into the house, take muddy boots off, winter gear off, have a place to store it. Right now we have puddles in the middle of our kitchen. And the 3 feet back really just doesn't give us any room to make the renovations that we need. The deck that's pictured there is also kind of falling apart. We have some rotting windows in the back, so we need to make some general improvements to the house, and we're hoping that we can make all of those upgrades to the house along with this renovation. As to the question about the deck, we don't plan to build a deck. We were going to use the space that's the walkway from the garage to the house to do more patio, more of a patio, like a path with a little patio for a table and chairs. Yeah, that's the main thing, is that it's really just modernizing the house, making those updates, and getting a little bit of extra space for our growing family. And then Casey had some other comments about the design and the thinking that we had in this proposed renovation.
Yeah, sure.
So as Anna mentioned, I may be the contractor, and my company, Case Builders, did do the design work. So we've been working with Anna and Jonathan on the design. To speak to, John, would you flip back to the mortgage survey? Just to speak to the point that Kirk raised earlier about looking at other directions that this addition could go on. We did look at all directions. But none of the directions solve the functional issue with the house, which is the current entry directly into the kitchen, which is a safety issue for them. So the back of the house is functionally the best place to put the addition. It's also the least obtrusive to the neighborhood. But we did look at going out the front, just to look into it. But the other issue that the front poses is there's a very steep topography on this site. And so during the winter time, when the driveway gets icy, that basically becomes an inaccessible entrance. And so to move, and when they park in the garage, to ask them to go and enter through the front of the house, it just doesn't functionally work. So wanting to enter through the back. Could you go to the floor plan now? So just, looking at the floor plan now, you see the existing circulation brings the owners into the kitchen, which is the first door. So our proposed design moves that door closer to the garage, provides a small mudroom space where they can take coats and boots and kind of have a space that can be wet, and then provides more of an actual entry into the house, a sense of entry, and then the expansion to the dining room just gives them a little bit of that needed space for their growing family, and kind of just rounds out that rectangle of the addition. So the 10-foot zoning or setback request would put it at 20 feet, which is equivalent to the R1D zoning. We just happened to notice that was an overlap there, and gives the amount of space that they need, and also solves the functional issue with the mudroom. I also want to point out that we've looked at the way this looks from the street and from the neighbors, and as the neighbors have mentioned in their letters, it's not visible from their houses. It's not very visible from the street either. The only place you can see it from the street would be through that fence that was shown in one of the images, but the fence is actually blocking part of that view.
Can you answer the question about the deck? Because it's pretty similar.
It's approximately 2 to 3 feet. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but within that range, 2 to 3 feet further than the existing deck.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So the addition is 2 to 3 feet further than the existing deck?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And we are planning to include stormwater mitigation on site through a rain garden, and so the addition would be a part of doing that as well.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner, Todd?
Yes, I have a question. Maybe, I don't know whether Ms. Solomon or Mr. Case will answer it. So certainly this is well thought out. You put a lot of work into it. The Zoning Board of Appeals has 5 criteria that they have to fit into whatever people want. And I'm having a problem with one of them. The one I'm having a problem with says that the practical difficulties which would result from failing to give you the variance are, quote, substantially more than mere inconvenience. And I'm not yet convinced that that's true. I understand with little kids, it's a slippery walk. But I don't know in my own mind that meets something more than mere inconvenience, because they can enter at the back at this point. And I certainly agree it would make the house more livable, but I don't know that it meets this criteria. So I guess you need to help me over that problem.
Yeah, I think we both probably could.
You want to go ahead?
Well, I'll just say, as being a guest in their home now several times, I think it's a significant safety issue that the entry from the back is directly into the kitchen right next to the gas stove, and they have young kids, and you have water dripping off you if it's raining, or if in the wintertime you have snow on your boots, and people are cooking, little kids are coming in, there's water on the floor. People could slip. There's fire right next to you with the stove. The door swings right into the stove, and the kitchen is incredibly small. It's a very small kitchen as it is. So the addition tries to open that space up and provide that safe entry space. So I think it's a significant safety issue, which is far more than mere inconvenience, just from my experience as a guest.
So I have a follow-up question from Ms. Solomon. I think you meant, do you not use the front entrance in the winter at all?
90% of the time we use the back. I mean, we go out to slide down the hill from the front door, but when we're using it for functional purposes, groceries, coming to and from school, bringing the kids in and out, our back door is by far our primary entrance.
And one more question, if I may. Have you ever looked at modifying the front entranceway by putting in, not necessarily a handicap ramp, but railings and steps and so on? Mr. Case?
Yeah, a handicap ramp would take up pretty much their whole front yard because the grade change is so significant. So really the only way to access, maybe you could go to that photo of the front, would be with steps. And in order to get to those steps, they would have to go down their steep driveway. So because the grade change is pretty significant from the driveway to the front entrance, it would require pretty extensive ramping but most likely steps, which would not really change anything from how it is now.
Mike?
The floor plan I'm looking at shows a door into the dining room.
Yeah.
Is that door already in existence, or?
It is.
So
That's all.
couldn't that serve potentially as an entrance that would be safer than walking into the kitchen?
There really isn't much room there either. The dining room, that door isn't very functional because the chair for the dining room's so small that the chair that's there basically gets hit when you open that door.
Got it.
So it's really not a functional entrance either. We almost never open that door except for air.
Okay. But the chair and the furniture that's there in front of it is not fixed or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
it's not, but the space, if you look at the dining room, we have a small round table with 4 very small chairs in that area. And it's hard to navigate around them to get into the rest of the house if one of them is even pulled out a little bit. So it's really also, and what's not in there is there's actually a little built-in hutch in the corner that kind of blocks passageway around the table as well.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Dave?
How much space do you have back there before you hit the setback? So there's 3 or 4 feet right now that you could build in by right.
Yes.
And if we expected your designer to come in with really the minimal request to meet your needs, you might be able to do something closer to maybe 2 or 3 or 4 feet request instead of a 10-foot request. I'm just looking how we can justify doing this. I'm looking at this dining room. It looks like it's about 9 by 12 by your scale, which is small. And I understand that, but if you add, was it 3 feet? Then it becomes 9 by 15, and you've got space to do the kitchen. I'm just looking at, and I know 3 foot, at the expense of an addition, you want to maximize what you get when you do all the work, the foundation work and everything. But I think my reading of this is a 10-foot request is, you're asking for a large abatement of the existing setback requirement, and perhaps larger than you really need to accomplish your needs. And in doing so, it may make your design easier to implement. But I think your designer might be able to come up with something that meets your needs and doesn't ask for that much of an abatement in the setback. My challenge to you would be to try to do that. I'm inclined, especially, last month we turned down a variance request for somebody that wanted a large abatement in their setback requirement and a side yard, and it was a corner lot, so really they have 2 front setbacks that they have to comply with, as well as their side and rear setbacks. And I found it, as much as I felt for the residents and wanting to help them meet their needs, I voted against it, and most of, or all of us did, because we didn't think we needed to do that, and they had bought that house knowing that the zoning requirements had that setback. I was actually there today. It's a really nice neighborhood, very modest houses. It seems like a great neighborhood I would love to live in. But I'm grappling with it. I need somebody to make a case for me about why this large of a variance needs to be required in order to accomplish your needs.
Can we respond to that? Or is that
I'm looking for a response.
Just briefly. We did look at doing an addition within the existing 3 feet that they had, and while it does expand the dining room, it doesn't give enough space to have an actual mudroom with enough room for storage and coats and boots and the kinds of things that need to go there, because they're dripping wet and you don't want to carry them through the house. So we did look at that, and it doesn't accomplish the functional, it doesn't solve the functional issue. So I hear what you're saying, but I can say that within the existing footprint, we did look into several designs that would try to work, and they just didn't. I think the homeowners feel that way, and we as designers felt that way. So, maybe what an alternative is that you're suggesting. It doesn't need to be a 10-foot request. It would be maybe somewhere in between 0 and 10 feet. And I see that as a valid comment. But I can say that within the existing area, it just wouldn't work for what they're trying to do. And so we went with the 10 feet because it solves the functional issue, and it also provides the space that the homeowners want for their growing family. And like you said, they're investing in this addition, so we're trying to not only solve the issues but provide a space that they're going to enjoy, and then the future homeowners down the road would also be able to enjoy.
What's the square footage in the house?
A little over 1,200.
And the second floor addition, are you staying within the setback on the second floor, or pretty close to it, right?
We're staying within the
It's
setback.
within
With your design.
Yeah,
Right.
it's really going as minimally as we can, I think, in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Well, you have
I'm
I've got 2 questions. You have
waiting for our debate. We're not discussing.
No, we're still asking questions. Did
Picking
you
up
have a
on Mr.
question? Okay.
DeVardy's question, a follow-up question. Would it be possible to build a mudroom within the existing setback where you could go out another 3 to 4 feet beyond the existing envelope? Is that possible?
It would be. It wouldn't be a particularly functional space. Maybe you have worked with, you've kind of been playing around with this more than
Yeah.
I have. I don't know if you wanted to.
It wouldn't be particularly functional, I think, because think about 3 feet, that's the minimum width of a hallway. And do you have enough room to, take things off, not only take them off, but have a place to then store them? So, we were kind of looking at not only, and that's just one person, but when you have a family coming in at the same time with maybe 3 to 4 people, we were trying to imagine a space where that many people could take off their coats, take off their boots, and then store them. So that's why in the design, like the south side of the floor plan, we're calling it mudroom entry. So you come in and there's actually a space where multiple people can stand and take off their wet clothes and put them into storage. If that answers your question, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so my question is, I guess if we could go back to the mortgage survey, the front of the house, the porch sits within it sits within the setback for the front setback, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is the topography such that you could not extend out adjacent to the porch on the front side of the house? Is there anything limiting you from building here or here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what I was referring to when I started speaking, that we did look at that, and it's more the topography change from the garage to that point is significant enough to where they would be going down a sloped driveway in order to get to that point. And so, that I think creates some safety issues because.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt. My question is, could that be built upon? I'm not assuming a function for
Yeah.
what that is built into.
Mhm. It could
You
be.
can close that, potentially move things around inside and make that usable space for something, right?
Yeah, it could be, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
This is a question. I can understand that the 3 feet is insufficient. And I guess my question may be slightly off topic, but I'm wondering about the flat roofs.
So these are initial design, and I actually would prefer a slanted roof. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, this isn't a final.
Yeah,
Okay.
these are not by any means final. These were
But
his
they're
initial, I didn't want him to do too much work unless we got the variance. So the details of the roof, I actually wanted to have a slant. I would like to have a slant roof on the first floor.
But just as a quick follow-up, is this roofs right now are all sloped roofs?
Yeah.
For
The pictures of the current house.
Right.
Yes.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you. Did you?
I just wanted to state something for the record, and I didn't want the lines between last month's case and this month's case to get a little blurred, so I just wanted to clarify. The last month's case, that was a 30-foot rear setback, is the same, similar to this, and they asked for 20 feet, which would have been 2/3, and this is 10 feet for 1/3. So I didn't want them to act like they were very similar cases. I just wanted to make that clear.
Is there anyone here from the public to speak on this case? No, yes, no, okay. I will note, we did receive letters of support from 626 Madison Place, 627 Madison Place, 615 Madison Place, and 622 South 7th Street. That being said, we are in discussion. Mike?
I'm very torn on this one. To distinguish it from the case we had last month, here we have completely surrounding neighbors all in support of this. Right? If you remember last month, we had multiple people against this. It was going to be blocking their views of the park. And as I look at the Google Earth view here, this is tucked in behind a bunch of trees. It's not going to be seen from the street, so that is a pro in my mind for this. A con seems pretty self-imposed, right? Like I'm fully supportive of procreating and having children, but as you add humans to your residence, that the zoning code doesn't account for that. I mean, all joking aside, right? So that to me doesn't carry a lot of sway for me, that someone whose family situation changed, as family situations tend to, is now has a house that fit them at one point that doesn't fit them anymore, is not enough of an argument for me to push me over the top. So I'm leaning towards voting no, but I want to hear from my fellow commissioners and see if someone can persuade me otherwise.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the best thing, about hearing some of these cases is that people love their neighborhood, they want to invest in it, they want to stay, and I think in general that's something we want to promote as a city. Alluding to Commissioner Grant and Daniel's comments about our criteria, I think it's also appreciated when neighbors come out and support, because that kind of checks the box about not affecting surrounding properties. But as was mentioned, we have to apply all 5 criteria. My circumstance with my family is we started out in a 1,200 square foot home, and it was not possible to expand, and this is, it's difficult on one hand. On the other hand, it's why we have neighborhoods with different kinds of housing stock, that some of these homes are constrained by the setbacks, and that provides a certain value to people who are starting out. So I'm torn, frankly, on 4 out of the 5 criteria here. So I'm also looking for some feedback on that. The safety issue, that's not something we consider. That's a building code issue, and if there's building code problems, I guess that can be dealt with through another channel. So, and again, I don't want to. We could spend a lot of time trying to redesign the interior of the house and taking out walls and putting a mudroom somewhere and making an open kitchen, all these, which is not why you're here. So I don't want to go down that road. But I guess I'd also be interested in hearing more of my fellow commissioners.
Julie?
Yeah, I unfortunately agree with my. I live in a 1,200 square foot house. We don't have a mudroom. It's kind of a pain. I agree. And most of the people I know live in 1,200 square foot houses with no mudrooms. It's not a unique situation. It's a pain. I mean, if we could do this one by one and not have rules, I'd say, heck yeah, this is a reasonable, but it doesn't conform with sort of the rules that I feel like I have to follow. I don't think it's exceptional, in particular to the property. I don't. It is a steep slope. I walk by there, and it's a gorgeous neighborhood, and it's a really cute house. And I think putting something on the front would be worse for the neighborhood. It has a really cute presence on the front, and there is a slope there. But it does seem like you could get a little bit of extra room in the back, and within the existing, it's not much, but you could get a little bit, and it just doesn't seem like this is a particularly, you also currently have 3 doors, and I'm a big proponent of front doors, and it is a sloping site, but it doesn't slope that much to get to the front door, and I can see if it's icy that it would be a problem. But it's sort of like, well, putting yet another door in a house, it seems like, I don't know, I'm having a hard time finding a reason to say yes.
So I'm looking at the Google Earth picture with the sorry if it's not Google, that shows the you know, the green rectangle of the size of the lot compared to many of the others. And here's my skinny little house that fortunately is much closer to the street, and I have a much deeper lot, so we were able to add on. So I'm recognizing that this is a very shallow lot, and the front of the house does align with the other neighbors. I wouldn't suggest adding to the front. It seems an appropriate front to the house. I'm inclined to support a variance because that's really the only place to go, and this is a uniquely shallow, not uniquely, but it is a shallow, not very deep lot. And there's nowhere to go to the side without blocking the garage. So I guess I am inclined to approve this. I sort of wish it was a little smaller, again, that whole minimum thing, but in general, I think I'll be supporting this.
Any other discussion? Go for it.
I'm struggling on this one too. I think some good points have been brought up about building onto the front of the house. I do feel like this is not the minimum necessary. I think that it makes sense not to have an entry right into a kitchen. I think the existing door into the dining room allows some flexibility with regard to that. I think that this could probably be achieved with a variance half of what is being requested. So I'm inclined to vote no based on what's currently put in front of us today, based on that.
I'll just kind of echo what you just said, Mike. That's kind of piggybacking on Heather's comments. I'm generally in supportive of it, but not entirely convinced that it's the minimum amount that's needed. I would be more supportive of it if, as was previously mentioned, the request was a bit smaller. I think that would show more of a good faith effort, I guess, to try and comply as much as practical with the requirements. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Heather?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to suggest it, but if the petitioner would be interested in tabling this and coming back with a different proposal, right, that would save them the fees.
It would, yeah. So I guess that's a question for you. If you're willing to entertain that idea, we can postpone this, and if you want to go back and redesign it and come back with a different request, we can hear it again and save you the application fee. If not, we can vote now, and if you decide to come back later, it'll be a fresh
Do you feel lucky today?
No, I don't.
Sorry. Too many.
I think it's a five
Can we hear what
votes.
the other folks
Sure,
have to say?
yeah.
Yeah.
Dave?
I think there's, if you look at this shot from the sky, these lots, these 4 lots right here are among the most shallow lots in this whole area, this whole section. So there are, I think, conditions that are peculiar to these to this lot and your 3 adjacent neighbors to your north. But I think you can accomplish your needs with a smaller variance request, maybe half or whatever. I mean, I would like your design team, hopefully they are talented and can grapple with it. And I would certainly support something like this because of the peculiar shape of these lots and the short sides, just short depths of them, but not such a large. And that's my vote, would be towards something in a smaller amount I could favor, but I can't vote in favor of this.
Do you wanted to
Did I
discuss.
wasn't there.
Kirk?
I think there's been a case or two like this before where there's been some folks have implied that something smaller might come back and it did not work out. I mean, I just want to be careful about what we infer is possible. So I just want to throw that out there.
Well, that was.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the issue being particular whether they have to pay a second fee or
No,
just tabling
no,
it?
there's no guarantee that another
Even a-
variance
I
would
Well,
be.
no, correct.
A smaller variance would be approved.
Correct, there's no guarantee, but this way your suggestion would save them another application fee.
Right.
Save more design.
And that's okay to do that. Okay.
So do it. Okay.
Can I make a motion? I have a sense, I'm willing to move the motion and bring it to a vote. I will move the motion, but then I'm going to move to table it to a future meeting. And I would encourage people to, in their hearts, think if they would vote for a smaller variance, to vote in favor of tabling it. But I get a sense from the people around the table that it's likely to fail. It may not, but I'll make the two motions. So if it's appropriate right now to move the petition.
I'm just mentally trying to get my brain around this. I mean, I can't, to have a motion, would be making a motion to thumbs up or thumbs down on the current proposal. We don't know what a future one would be. I don't know that it makes sense to make a motion at this point. I think if we want to
Oh, I
table it,
see.
we'd table
Yeah,
it.
if we make a motion.
And then they would come back with a new proposal. We could decide thumbs up or thumbs down on that new one.
Okay.
Because the current one would be,
Fine.
So we'd be
Would go
making a
away.
motion
So,
to table it.
I
Yeah, so there
move-
wouldn't be a motion.
I move that we table petition ZBA 17-31, 621 Madison Place.
a second, yep, third one.
Sorry, Candace.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I just had to take a second. So Dave made the motion. And who seconded it?
Todd.
Did you have your hand first, Mike? I don't know. Whatever. I'll take the credit. I'll take it.
Competition.
Okay, so we have a motion to postpone this to a future meeting. I guess I'll ask the applicant, are you okay with that? And if you do decide that you don't want to come back, you can just withdraw your petition and it'll go off the books.
How much time do we have?
You won't be going in December. I can tell you that much. You'd be in January would be the next opportunity.
January would be the next opportunity?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there discussion of the tabling? It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Or is that not?
I'm not sure what Robert says of that, but.
I don't know, do you know?
Before,
Well,
we're going to have to vote on the tabling. So typically there's moved, seconded, then any discussion, and then a vote. But I'm not the parliamentarian.
I think
Yeah,
it's
I
up
thought
to-
when it was tabled,
It's up
it
to
was
the
just-
chair. Nobody's going to consult Robert's on this.
Yeah, if you have a comment, go ahead and.
So I guess, what we've done in the past is not predictive. It doesn't have any, it doesn't form case law. These are all individual petitions. So I guess my thought on this is, we've dealt with situations where there are variances that deal with values that the city's promoted in terms of porches and so on. And there are other issues like this where it delves a little bit into a different category of self-imposition. So I just want to, for as much as I want to allow improvements like this, I just like to throw that out there as a encouragement to think about our criteria.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to vote against the motion to postpone. Just criteria D and E for me won't be met even if it's a foot of variance asked here, so there would be nothing to dissuade me on a different design for a variance going to the back here.
But that doesn't, yes.
Well, that's one.
It's 5 votes to.
Right.
I understand, it's my
Yeah,
vote,
yeah.
All right, so we're ready to vote on the motion to postpone. Correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Heather?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Kirk?
No.
I vote yes. Mike Daniel?
No.
Dave?
Yes.
Mike Dobmeyer?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to postpone has been approved. So, postpone to a future meeting when we resubmit. Moving on to petition ZBA 17-032, 1107 South State Street. John?
The next case is ZBA case 17-032. The address is 1107 South State Street. 1107 South Street LLC, represented by Carl O'Huter, are seeking relief from Chapter 55 zoning, Section 5:87, structure nonconformance. The owners are proposing to alter a nonconforming structure by constructing a 2-story addition to the rear of the existing multifamily residence. The addition will be 8 feet by 24 feet in size and contain 2 bathrooms and an egress stair system to the basement. The result of the construction will be a 4-unit rental property being converted into a duplex. The subject parcel is zoned R4C multifamily and is located south of Arch Street, across the street from the University of Michigan athletic facilities. The property is non-conforming as it contains 5,270 square feet and 8,500 is required in the R4C district. Additionally, the building does not meet either of the side yard requirements of 12 feet. However, due to the structure being converted to a duplex, the R2A setbacks are applied and the addition will meet both the side and rear setbacks. Previously, the subject property received Zoning Board of Appeals approval to alter a non-conforming structure to modify the roof and add a bathroom to the 3rd floor, which was ZBA case 13-007. If you'll follow along on the monitor, you'll see the location map. You'll see the highlighted parcel. It's in the center of the map, and it's just east of South State Street. The next slide is the aerial of the property and the surrounding neighborhoods and properties. Next slide is a zoomed-in aerial photo, and the addition will be going back here. As you'll see in the next slide, the survey, it shows the 8 by 24 foot wide addition. It's going to be eliminating that wooden access stairs in the back that are right here. It says exterior stairs being removed, and the proposed rear addition in the red shaded area. The next slide is floor plans that were submitted with the application, and it's showing the existing conditions. You see there are apartment A and B on the 1st floor. The 2nd floor contains unit C, or unit 3. And the next slide shows unit D, which is the 4th on the 3rd floor. These are all existing conditions. The next slides show the proposed conditions. This is the first unit showing all on the 1st floor. And then the next slide shows the unit's going to be, I believe, A and B, 1st and 2nd, and then the 3rd floor, 2nd unit B goes up to the 3rd floor. So we're going from 4 units down to 2. And that is the floor plan showing the stairs and the access and the bathrooms back here. You see it's 8 feet by 24 feet wide. These are the photos of when I made the site visit and current conditions of the property. This is the rear of the property where the addition will be going into. You see the fire escape, the wooden stair structure, will be removed. This is with my back to the subject property, looking at the rear yard and the existing parking lot, current conditions. This is showing the side of the property, the stairs coming down, and adjacent property. Area where the proposed addition is to be located. Adjacent property, another adjacent property, and the driveway leading down to the rear of the back of the property. It's a shared driveway situation. I will take any questions at this time.
Thanks, Tom. Any questions for staff? Dave?
Even with the addition, it meets all the setback requirements. It's just a
Side and
modification.
rear, yes, sir. Yep, it's an alteration to a non-conforming structure. It's not a variance. Yes.
So how many times, it looks like this has come before, and looking at the house, it's obviously been remodeled many times over the years. Like, is this kind of a, like, how many times can a property come before?
I don't believe there is a quota.
There's no, like, 'cause
But anything about the previous case, you can ask the applicant. He has a much firmer grasp on the history than I do.
Okay.
Kirk?
I'm curious about why not ask for a larger, along the same note, not that I'm recommending this, but what constrains the applicant from asking for a larger addition? Is it parking room, or?
That would be an application or applicant question. I would assume that it would have to do with possible maneuvering driveway when the cars come to the back. There's going to, when you turn and where they're parking. So.
But it's not a setback, I mean.
No, there was.
Way back there, right?
Yeah, correct. They're within the setbacks right now. They're meeting the setback. It's gonna.
It's a zoning issue.
Yeah.
I'll talk to him.
Yeah, it's basically, it's an alteration to a non-conforming structure because it doesn't meet the lot size requirements. So anytime you have a multifamily property and you want to alter it in any way, adding habitable space, then you have to get an alteration to a non-conforming structure, even if you meet the setbacks
And
for multifamily.
can you, so describe again how it does not meet the parcel size?
Because it's only 5,270 square feet, and for the district, it requires 8,500 square feet.
For the lot size.
For the lot size, yes. It's a non-conforming lot, yep.
And so, in staff's opinion, I mean, does enlarging the building get us closer to the spirit of the zoning rules, or not?
I don't believe that's applicable in this situation. It just, it's something in the code that when you have a non-conforming lot or a non-conforming structure, and it's multifamily, the code requires that you receive approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals to alter that structure in any way. So they're adding habitable space, they're adding an egress stairwell, they're doing an 8x24 addition, and so since it is multifamily, if it was single family and it met the setbacks, they wouldn't be here. But since it's multifamily, the code requires that.
Right. So, yeah, I'm just trying to parse the phrase, complies as nearly as practicable with the requirements of the zoning chapter. So, but I realize it's not making the setbacks worse.
No, it's not impacting the setbacks at all.
Thank you.
Heather?
So just to clarify, it's the lot size square footage that does not comply?
Yes.
It's irregardless of the square footage of the so-
And I will also say for the record that the applicant is not increasing the occupancy as well. There's currently 12, they're registered for 12, and they're going to remain at 12, even though they're reducing the number of units from 4 down to 2.
Does changing the number of units have any impact on parking at all? Like
Well,
what's existing versus what's...
They're reducing the units, so it would reduce the
Okay.
number required. They're required 1.5 spaces per unit, so they're only required 3 spaces, and they meet that.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. If you could please sign in, state your name for the record. You'll have 5
Sign in.
minutes.
Okay, my name's Carl Huter. I'm an architect, and I'm the agent for the petitioner tonight. This client of mine owns a number of properties on campus, and they've bought them over the past 30 or 40 years. And they're in a position now where every year they're going through and they're taking one of their houses and they're completely renovating them. And the building department, what we're doing is we're trying to, if some of you have been in some of these units on campus, there are so many apartments, and the endangerment to the residents because of lack of unit-to-unit fire separation, poor egress, etc., is such that the building department and housing services look upon, we come along and we're going to take this house and completely renovate it. We're going to add the fire separations. It needs one egress stair. We're going to put two in. We're going to improve the bathrooms and all the living conditions, all the smoke detectors and monoxide detectors, fire alarms and whatnot. So they're completely renovating this building. And for Kurt and other people, this is an offshoot of all these towers that are going up because the market is demanding higher quality rental units on campus. And so some property owners, such as mine, are saying, here's our competition, we need to meet that. We need to upgrade these homes to that capacity. Zoning, planning department doesn't like these houses that are 3, 4, and sometimes 6 units in them, and they prefer that they be contracted down to 1 or 2 units, which is what we're doing. The parking, if you had a question on parking, and if you looked at the site plan, we're taking out this old exterior wooden stairway that takes up about as much room as the addition, and so there'll actually be more room to park back there than there is right now. And certainly as we all drive around campus and look at rental units, parking is always a problem. The front setback right now is 27.5 feet to the porch. I think we need 25. Our rear setback to the addition will be 44.4, and I think 30 is appropriate in R2 type zoning. We have 9.1 on one side and 6.9 feet on the other side. I'm here to ask any other questions as you want to bore into this. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for the petitioner?
Yes. Carl, are they totally gutting?
Yes.
And so it's all new electrical,
All
up to code and everything?
Everything.
Any other questions? Yeah, sorry.
Is there any change to the front of the house?
Yes, we're going to remove the giant pimple of the bathroom that someone stuck on that thing. I have fought to get rid of that thing for years.
That is actually good. I mean, that's a house that is noticed. It is a house that, yeah.
It's like the hunchback of North Main.
The thing above the porch.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a bathroom that was added at some point.
It's been on a lot of people's lists of sort of worst remodeling in town. So that's good.
Campus housing now.
Yeah.
People should be laying on the roof, not having a bathroom sit on it, right?
It would be better.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. So anyone here from the public to speak on this? No? All right, we're in discussion. Julie?
Just as because it's R4C, and I know a fair bit about R4C, about, I think it's 83% or something of all R4C lots are out of compliance because it was existing conditions with a new zoning put on that was kind of designed to knock down all the houses and put a more suburban style. So I have no problem with this. I mean, almost all of those houses are going to be out of compliance, and since it meets the setbacks, then I think this is a reasonable change, and I'm all for updating these houses for safety and security. And I'm not sure that the unit number is prescribed, I think, but certainly updating it is, or the number of bedrooms. I don't think people care if, I don't think the building department cares if there's 1 bedroom or 6 bedrooms, or, but I think updating it is a good thing, and making the renovation seems like a good thing, so supporting it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Julie. This is a very easy yes for me. I'm all in favor of more egress and fire separation and bringing everything up to the current state building code. This is like sunshine and apple pie. Who would disagree? So I will be voting yes. This is very easy.
Dave?
I just want to say for the record, I wish more rental housing owners would do this sort of update and bring things up to current code. I think taking that wooden staircase off the back and making the egress interior is going to add to safety, as well as all the other improvements.
Kirk?
Yeah, I'll just echo those sentiments. I think, given the non-objection or even objection of the neighbors, I think this is a reasonable addition. Will help clean it up, and it's just part of the criteria, but they got a good architect, so it helps. Thank you.
Motion? Anybody? Mike?
This is for petition ZBA 17-032, 1107 South State Street. Permission to alter a non-conforming structure. Based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants permission to alter a non-conforming structure per submitted plans. Based on A, the alteration complies as nearly as practicable with the requirements of the zoning chapter and will not have a detrimental effect on neighboring property.
We have a motion, support from Kirk. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Yes.
Opposed?
Okay, I'd like to say something. I've been coming down here for 4 years now, almost. And I'd like to say that in the past couple of times I've been in front of this board, I've never seen a fairer run organization. You ask very thoughtful and considered questions, and every one of you is on board with what's in front of you. And I'm saying this now, so I'm not apple polishing. but I'm really impressed on how many people are operating now, and it's a great plus for the city that we have people like you sitting here taking up your free time to do things like this. So thank you.
It's all a result of the staff leadership.
Well, before John, it was a Wild West.
Since John's been on board, I can say things have been different. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to ZBA 17-033-155 North Maple Road. John? Oh, all right. It's like 7th stretch.
I'm gonna show that pie.
I wanted to point this out.
Squirrel food.
My favorite.
What do you?
Don't mind.
The page was not blank. It had words in it.
Oh.
Never.
Sure, you can do it now.
You want to do now?
It should be 15. Okay.
All right, the next case is ZBA case 17-033. The address is 155 North Maple Road. Brixmore Property Group is requesting a variance from Chapter 61 signs, Section 5:502, subsection 1, exterior business signs. The owners are proposing 246 square feet of signage for new commercial construction of a fitness center located at the Maple Village Shopping Center. The ordinance provides for a maximum of 200 square feet of signage. The sign package will consist of 3 sets of 40-inch LED illuminated channel letters with 1 set on the north, east, and west elevations of the building. The site is located on the southwest corner of South Maple Road and Jackson Avenue, across from Veterans Park. The property is zoned C3 Fringe Commercial District. The existing English Gardens business will be demolished and replaced with a 34,000 square foot fitness center. The new building will be located in the northeast section of the shopping center. The proposed project was submitted as the site plan project 17-010 and was formally approved in August 2017. If you'll turn your attention to the monitors, You will see that the highlighted parcel is at the center of the property, and I will add this as a side note. The property, this property right here, and is part of that. They were combined. The GIS has not been updated yet, so it's all one parcel right here. You see the aerial of the property and the shopping center, existing conditions, surrounding neighborhood. And this is the zoomed in photo of the shopping center and the proposed location. The building will be situated in this area right here. It's a site plan / survey that was submitted with the application, and this is the proposed fitness center up in the northeast corner of the shopping center. And you've got Maple Road running right along here. Site plan that was submitted showing the proposed property. Parking will be in the back here. Proposed entrance will be right here. Elevations that were submitted with the application. These are the proposed channel letters, 40 inches tall. A logo that was submitted with the application. These are photos of the site that when I was out there making my inspection. Current conditions, interior of the shopping center. More interior photos, adjacent business. This is looking out towards Maple Road across at Veterans Park. Next to the east side of the property. Interior of the property back towards 94, the expressway. And that is the end of staff's presentation. I will take any questions at this time.
Thanks, John. Todd?
I do have one. John, could you expand a little more on the first page of the presentation under A, the paragraphs that start with, at the request of the City of Ann Arbor, then the second one, the subject property has. So I think the city's been working with the applicant, and this signage variance application is a result of that. Did I lose you?
You did.
Oh, I'm sorry. On the
I
first
got it now.
page,
What was the question?
Could you unpack those paragraphs a little and explain a little more detail? I get the impression the applicant's been working with the city, and because of the
They have
various
approved-
requirements, it turns out they need a variance on the signage to do what they've been nice enough to do to meet the city's needs or requirements, or something like that. I'm
Well,
paraphrasing here.
they have an approved site plan.
Right.
And the district, you can have a setback of between 10 and 25 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so through the approved site plan process, the building is being placed where it's going to be positioned up towards the main thoroughfare there. And so it's going to be highly visible. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Now, let me ask a more clear question, and I guess I've had a long day, so I wasn't the most articulate. A need for a third set of signage? So maybe you could explain that. So
Well,
what are the
that might be
different
a
size
question you might want to ask the applicant.
Sure. Okay, I'll
They
hold that.
they have the ability to advertise their product. They have it up to 200 square feet.
Right.
So they've chosen to divvy that up between 3 sets of channel letters on 3 different elevations.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Dave?
Is the logo going to be, or just the letters?
I believe it's part of the logo. is
The
part of the overall
application to
package,
get to
yeah.
the 240
Yeah.
square feet does include the logo.
Yes.
And the logo is part of that square footage count?
240.
Part of the square
Yes.
footage, yes.
Yep.
To give you an example, it's about 13 square feet is what the logo entails.
Okay. And would the logo be in 3 places or one?
No,
place?
logo is on just the west elevation away from Maple Road.
Kirk, did you have a question for staff?
Are we still in staff questions?
Yes.
Okay. So this, the south elevation that's labeled on here, is that what people will see as they're driving north on Maple Road?
North?
No.
No.
It's the north elevation, the south elevation faces back,
to the Shell station.
Back to, yeah, this is the Shell station.
It's the east elevation that you'll see
Yep.
driving down Maple Road.
The east elevation faces Maple Road, right?
Yes.
The south elevation is what you'll see as you approach it from the
Approach
south.
Jackson from.
That's the Jackson Road.
That's on Jackson Road.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kurt,
Or
you're-
it's facing-
But you're
It'll
east.
face, it'll face the interior of the parking lot, or the, yeah, not the south side of the parking lot.
Well, where's the?
Because it's kind of elevated, right?
Yeah, there's about a 13-foot high retaining wall that parallels the south elevation.
Got it, okay.
That's
So
where the
Freeway is
finish
to
on
the
the
west.
south
This is
side
the
is
south,
now.
south, and this is
North, south.
Right. And this is what's facing south.
Yes.
Right, but
That's
there's-
facing back up towards the
Retaining
gas
wall.
station, the retaining wall, yeah.
I think the west is facing the freeway.
Got it. This is, I guess it's just a peripheral question. This falls under, I guess, relatively recently changed zoning, which moved structures toward this street. Is there an operable door on the east elevation?
On the east side, no. Only emergency exit.
So the, okay. So, John, so the
east elevation.
The recommendation for staff is to, if they wanted to break it among the three facades, one facing Maple, one facing to the north, one facing to the west, is the reason for this variance is because they wanted to have 3 sign facings?
No, the reason for the variance is they want to exceed the 200 square feet. They can put their elevation, their sign on one elevation, or 2 or 3 or 4, break it up. They get 200 as a blank slate, so they can use that how they choose.
Okay, thank you.
I have just a quick question. So these elevations show these kind of graphics?
Those aren't
Is
part of that.
That's not considered
Not
signage?
considered.
No, it is considered signage, it's not part of the sign application, though.
Right.
Okay.
They're not proposing that.
Okay.
Could you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
The elevations show these graphics, and I asked if that was considered signage and if it was included in the request. And John said it is considered signage, but it's not included in the sign package.
I guess I need a little more clarity. So it's and I guess it's a question for the petitioner when we get there, is they're not planning to do these graphics? Or?
No, that's not part of the sign application. I mean, you might want to ask them.
Okay.
Yeah, those are considered signs.
These orange
The-
Oh,
athletes.
those are the people in sign exercises.
That's a question for the petitioner.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah,
Kurt.
so I'm sorry, I am unclear, and I would love your take, John. So the sign package were,
Those are not being proposed tonight.
those are not being proposed, okay. And if they were, they would have to come back because it would exceed the
Correct.
variance that they may or might have received. Okay,
Yes, sir.
Thank you, perfect.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. You could sign in, state your name for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Dwayne Hine. I'm with Senior Project Manager of Brixmore Property Group. I've been involved in the Maple Village project development for the past 2 years. And I was part of the development as far as when Steinmart and Sierra Trading, which is a new tenant in that, and it's been a pretty exciting project to start. LA Fitness, the fitness portion of this, has always been a part of this planned back as far back as early February when we came in to meet with staff and with site planning, where we developed that package of molding or blending the 2 parcels together and putting us into a C3 zone, which forced us to move to the front of the building. The tenant originally proposed to have that back by the old English Gardens, and because we were in agreement or had convinced the tenant to move to that location, that's required us to move the entrance towards the west elevation, which faces back into our shopping center. And the size of the graphics and the size that the prototype for the LA Fitness, if it was back on the previous location, their prototype that they request is a 60-inch letter, which we could fit within one sign across the front of the building. and get their prototype. We've worked with staff and worked with the tenant to reduce that to the size that we were presenting here today, and trying to get 3 signs on all 3 sides to look even and equal, and to highlight where the entrance is. That's where we're exceeding the by 46 square feet that's on this package. So that's the history of this and how we've gotten to this point, and that's why we're here asking for that additional square footage.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? So I'll ask real quick, these graphics that are shown on the elevations, are those not going to be on the
The elevations were developed way back in February. This is the same set of plans and same elevations we've had for site planning all the way through the whole package. It's something that has never been identified as signage until we come to this application, and we have to review it. But we haven't had any time to take a look at how we want to present. It's just a feature of the building, just like the tower or anything else that's out there. So what goes into it is, we'll work with the tenant and comply with whatever the committee agrees to, or what we need to permit for signage.
Thank you.
Mr. Heinen?
Yes.
I assume you could always make a sign smaller so you could have 200 square feet, but I imagine the 246 has to do with visibility from the road so that it's easily readable, so that it's recognizable, all those things. So there's a rationale to go to 246.
Correct. And the rationale is there's different sizes per different size square buildings, how many signs you have on it. And, everybody looks at what, I'll let the tenant explain exactly their theory behind how they get to that level, but this was one of their prototypes as well. So they went down from the 60 down to this location, and we were this close, so we figured we'd try to come in and see if we can't get this approved as it is. The west elevation, and again, just to clarify, your south elevation has a 13-foot retaining wall, so there was no opportunity at that location. The other two, one of them faces west, or east faces the park, which there is no residence there, but you can see it very well from Maple Road. It's the people that are coming northbound or southbound on Maple that have an opportunity with the landscaping we have in front, the rest of the development, to catch the eye that way, to get them to turn in. The west elevation is really to help them direct how you get to the store, and it's really only being seen by the people that are on the shopping center itself. Okay?
Any other questions?
Yes.
So these things on the elevation that are orange, are they windows?
What's that? No, they were like window boxes. There were like features that they built into the brick and stuff, and it's one of their architectural prototype of what they had on their building. It's been on the center. If it's something that is going to be considered signage, we'll have to evaluate how we address it. Otherwise, it may end up being just a brick formation around the outside, or a window, or it may become something else that is built into the building itself. It won't be signage, won't have any letters, won't have anything on it. It could be just a block window frame around for the building, and a feature in the brick. It'd be like a raised brick portion of it that comes out.
Is it okay to ask John a question?
Sure.
Now, if these were windows and someone were to cover the window with a graphic, would that be a sign?
It would be.
Okay.
It meets the definition. If you would like, I can read the definition of a sign. It's chapter 11. No, it's not long.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this petition? Yeah.
Yeah, my
Sign
name
in,
is-
state your name, please.
Sure, my name is Gary Collins. I'm with Fitness International. We're the parent ownership company of LA Fitness. So very glad that we could be here this evening. We've worked very diligently for over an extended period of time with the city staff. Very much appreciate everyone's cooperation. I did bring larger format views for the exterior, if it please the board, if you happy to share those tonight. That can address some of the detailed questions it's hard to see on the monitor. With respect to the third sign, if I could address that, as Dwayne had pointed out, Our typical building would be set back off the street with a large set of letters facing that street right-of-way exposures in the order of magnitude 200 square feet. This particular building, given its orientation up against Maple Road with the parking in the rear, it is essential that we have identification over the back of the building so that our members know where they can enter the club. It's a brand identity, it's a destination. Our business model and our operations would prohibit us from having an entrance on Maple with parking in the back, because everybody that filters through has to come by the reception desk, and it just, the facility would not work. So I think that's important to note, that 1/3 of that signage faces the opposite direction of the right-of-way and is a very essential aspect of the operation. Secondly, with respect to the graphics are just a sport-themed artwork. We've added them to this corner to give that corner a architectural identity, to soften the mass that's at the corner of Maple in the entrance. There's no LA Fitness, there's no words, it's just artwork. It is branded artwork to what's happening inside, much like a grocery store would have a picture of apples or, grapes and bananas. And so it's our feeling that it's not signage because it doesn't particularly say LA Fitness on it. And I guess last thing, in a good faith effort, in order to respond to the, or I guess react to the request for variance, we would be willing to eliminate the logo swish on the west side, if that helps the board in reaching a favorable decision.
Thank you. Is there, yes, question?
I was just wondering if you could tell me which is going to be the main entrance door. Is it what's between the Swish and the LA Fitness, or is it this door down here?
Yeah, the door on the west side is actually an emergency exit.
Okay.
So it's the double door in the
So
middle.
it's the double door in the middle.
And that, on the site plan, unfortunately, this doesn't show the parking arrangement, but that door is identified with a nice island and landscaping along both sides of that, flanking that entrance. So it'll be very
clear.
noticeable
Yeah.
from the vantage point of the west side.
Thank you.
I've got that if you want.
Okay.
I believe it's that option 4, that's the original site plan, shows the interior parking lot.
I don't know if the,
No.
we kind of shifted the parking around a little bit. There's an island that's 40 feet wide.
Yeah,
About 40 feet
right
wide,
next
that's
to
got
the
from the
bios.
curb to the building, with landscape islands, for some low-lying landscape.
Yeah, that's something we
Any other
Was that a safe one?
questions?
Oh, just that sort of swish, swoosh, half helmet thing. Is it 13 square feet about?
12.97.
It's rotated on the exhibit
It's
that you have,
rotated.
ma'am. We would not put it on the building. It's intended to be an L and an A, in a
Oh,
kind of
okay.
abstract form. But in order to measure it, it was obscured.
But that's how much if we reduced it by that, it would be about 13 square feet.
Yeah, it's 2 pages back in the packet.
Oh, okay.
It shows it.
Any other questions?
For the petitioner?
Yes. Heather?
If you had known that the orange graphics might be considered signage, would the variance request have been different?
It's difficult to address that right now. They've, as Dwayne had represented it, the graphics have been a part of this architecture and design since day one, which goes back to February 27th. And it is an essential part of our brand identity for this particular building, given the orientation of the entrance, the position on the site. I mean, we want to be like every other retailer. We want to be 200 feet off with a big sign and big bright windows. We've attempted to address the desire to have frontage on Maple, giving window exposure into the pool, canopies over those pool windows, an architectural feature on the corner that we think is aesthetically pleasing and inviting. We didn't want to smack, just a big blank wall up against Maple, because I don't think that's what anyone here would really want.
So I guess again,
They're not.
Those aren't part of the package tonight, and not being considered, so.
right, they're not part of the variance.
Right.
However, if you were to read that definition of a sign,
Would you like me to?
sure.
Okay.
If it's handy.
It is, I got it right here in front of me. Sign is defined in the zoning ordinance as a name, identification, description, display, light, balloon, banner, or illustration which is affixed to or painted or otherwise located or set upon in a building, structure, or piece of land and which communicates information or directs attention to an object, product, place, activity, person, institution, organization, or business, and which is visible from any public street, sidewalk, alley, park, or public property.
A lot of signs in town.
So I guess, again, I would ask the petitioner, had they known that these might have been considered signs, might they have asked for a larger variance?
Difficult question.
Yeah, it's a difficult question, because the calculation of that square footage and this calculation of that, submittal, you calculating it from what limits? From the graphics, or the frame of the graphics, or any, how's it defined as calculated then? So if we put the calculations, say it's 14 or 24 square feet, you add that to the variance as far as the application goes, then, if we would have known that that was gonna be required, we would have added that to it if it was essential to it. But we haven't had that ruling to vote with, or to discuss with the client, and that we came in with this application because this is the letters and the signage for the LA Fitness is what we were it was more important at this point. I can always take those off if I need to and calculate it, but if I'm limited to 200, my LA Fitness building is, the letters on the LA Fitness are gonna be already in violation.
Any other
Yes.
questions with Dave?
Yes.
I'm just looking for ways to scale this down. Between LA and fitness, you've got that straight line. I'm just wondering if it was just a horizontal hyphen. You could probably cut.
I'm sorry, LA Fitness, oh, the vertical dash
Word
or
mark,
the
Dave.
slash?
What?
It's their word mark, it's their corporate word mark.
Yeah, it's like changing Nike's logo.
Right.
Well, it's an extra 6 feet.
It could be A Fitness too, we just drop the A.
Well, okay.
Hey.
Well, I'll wait to.
I think they'll go for that
I'll
one.
make my comments.
Any other
during-
questions for the petitioner?
I have a question for staff. So I guess as a matter of order, could we potentially approve this variance and then see it back in front of us again in the future once they have a chance to review these illustrations?
That is a possibility. It's completely up to the applicant.
Okay.
Okay.
Also a question for staff. What if they were to leave these runner icons off and then commission a public art project to go on that? I mean, I'm just curious about the border there. Is it because it's associated with their brand and it's the color scheme and it's...
That, well, it's just because it fits the definition. It's an illustration that directs attention to a business or organization from a public right of way. So, but there are exceptions for community art and things like that, like wall murals that we see downtown.
Are you saying direct, as if people look at it and they go to it, or just something to catch their eye?
Well,
Because if it said Whole Foods on that banner, would it be still considered a signage for that building, even though it's not Whole Foods?
Yep.
Yes, it would.
Be
It would,
considered an
okay.
on-premise sign.
That would be probably, it's in the
But
wrong
you're-
spot.
But you're
that's
saying if they were,
an artwork.
if the motivation was purely to, which I think is admirable, to break up the mass and make it more appealing, they could commission some kind of art project, and you said there's a carve-out for public art, basically, potentially.
But I think there might be a interpretation about whether that would be, if it's art with people exercising on the wall, then I would say that's still a sign, but if it's, on a bus stop and it's a community of family eating a picnic, that's a different story. So it all depends on how it relates to the business and how, it's kind of a hypothetical question, so.
Oh, sure. If I could also follow up with something that was noted in the staff report, it says, and I can't recall which is the petitioner, I think this is the petitioner's response in italics on the second page of your signature. The petitioner said the conditions for the added signage is a result from the City of Ann Arbor imposed building setback requirements, which forced a change in location of the entrance door location. Was this something that was imposed after they submitted their site plans? Like, was there some change or surprise or something?
The original site plan that we had the building back away where the old English Gardens was. And when we did the layout in the parking lot and we went through the planning commission, and it was your planning commission staff for the application for site plan approval. It was based on that first review that came through that they recommended that we combine the two parcels, put the building up. If we combine the two parcels, it's gonna force us to go to C3, which would force us to the front of the building, which is not what the applicant wanted originally. But by not going through that zoning hearing or planning commission, public hearing, we proceeded with it. And again, it started in February. Now we're at the middle of November here, and we're still trying to get our signage approved. So it's always, these elevations have always been what we wanted to build. The building has always started in the back, and through the planning commission's reviews and we worked with them, they wanted us to move it to the front. We agreed because that was the fastest way, and convinced the tenant this is where the least resistance, this is where we should go. And here's how we get to that point. We put the signage in the front on the west side, which identifies where the store is, because that's operationalized where it would fit.
So it sort of in summary, you could characterize this as your
It's not our first choice.
You're right, adhering to planning staff's encouragement to relocate it more in keeping with what was outlined in the master plan, a little more pedestrian friendly, et cetera, has put you in a bit of a bind.
Correct.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Any other questions for the petition? Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak on this petition?
I'd like to just make a couple comments. My name is Mark Solomon. I'm the Vice President of Redevelopment for the Midwest with Brixmore Property Group. And I just, first of all, want to support everything that my associate, Dwayne Hine, to my left, has said tonight. And also our tenant, Gary Collins, representing LA Fitness. We've collectively worked really, really hard to make Maple Village a game-changing redevelopment. And we've worked very hard with the city and with the planning department and city staff. We're very proud of what we've brought forth to the community thus far. And we view the LA Fitness as a tremendous amenity that we're able to offer the community. And as was explained previously, LA Fitness felt very strongly, and they do feel very strongly about their prototype model, which is more of a suburban configuration with the building toward the back of the property, the parking lot out in front, and probably could have gotten by with one building sign. And there was a slide here that showed some of our other tenants like Steinmart and Home Goods that are in that conventional configuration. I think there was an elevation shot that showed their signs. So those tenants enjoy the ability to have a full-size sign facing the street and are very content with that representation. I think LA Fitness would have been content with a similar representation. And at the city's advice, as Dwayne explained, we worked pretty hard to convince LA Fitness that we want to do the right thing for the city of Ann Arbor, and we want to play ball, so to speak, with the contemporary development guidelines that the city's put forth, and it was a little bit of a struggle to get LA Fitness over the hump and agreeable to be along the street. So I guess my point in all that is I personally, and we as a company, support the plea that LA Fitness is making through us as the developer to be granted some leniency with their signage square footage, not to get a larger sign than they would typically put in, but because they're somewhat forced into a situation of having to have signs on 3 sides of the building where under other circumstances they might have been able to get by with 1. The ability to put a conventional 40-inch tall sign but on 3 sides of the building. So with that, respectfully, that's my plea to the board.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak on this? I'll note we did receive a letter of support from Kevin Lent, the president of Sola Salons.
Yes, he's one of the tenants that is just to the right of that Sierra Trading that was, has joined our development and is very pleased with Maple Village, and he wanted to make sure that he provided us a letter that we could of support for our signage.
Right. With that said, we're in discussion. Julie?
Since I've watched this development from the time it came to Planning Commission, I think that one advantage of being closer to the street is you don't need the sign as big as, say, Home Goods and Steinmart. I also think that while I might be driving down the street and say, oh, I need to pick up something from Home Goods, I'm less likely to say, oh, I suddenly want to work out. I think LA Fitness is more of a destination, and because of that, or an intentional destination, because of that, I don't think you're going to get a lot of sudden exercisers, like driving through the parking lot on the west side and seeing the sign and suddenly thinking, oh, I should stop in. So I can see why you'd want the larger signs on the north and the east, but honestly on the west elevation, I think you could put a small LA Fitness sign over the door and people would know how to get in. I mean, that's on the back of the building in a parking lot. And I just don't think, even if you're coming by on the highway, if you can see it, I don't think there's a need and a sudden influx for people who are gonna suddenly be like, oh, I really need to, go into LA Fitness right now. So I just, and taking the sort of italicized or the logo off, the yellow and blue logo, will give you a little bit, and I think you wouldn't need to have, I just don't see a reason we make everybody else adhere to this 200 square feet, and I don't see a reason to give a variance.
Mike?
Yeah, Julie made a bunch of points that I wanted to make in a much more articulate way than I would have. I think LA Fitness is a great gym. I've been in a few of them around the country, and it's definitely a high-quality place, and I support my fellow West Siders getting in better physical shape overall. So, however, the advantage of gym has is as people drive by, they see people on treadmills, right? They're going to see people in the windows. They're going to know it's a gym as well. So everything Julie said, plus the fact that everyone's going to be lit up, working out. There's not enough here for me to go below the 200 square feet.
You mean above?
Above. Or above, excuse me, above, yes.
Confused me there.
Yes, apologize.
Todd?
Yeah, the problem having this, and Mr. Solomon said it, repeating some of the same things Mr. Hines said, and that was originally my purpose in asking you, John, my question, is the developer and LA Fitness have been working with the city, and they accommodated the city's wish to move closer to the street. And why there's not an explicit, you get one for the other, and maybe this isn't really quite saying it right. It's not exactly that they were forced into this, but it means that they need more than one sign. And I think having 2 signs of one size and another sign of a smaller size, I realize that consistency isn't always the greatest virtue, but it would drive an architect crazy to have two different LA Fitness signs. The problem I'm having with Mike and Julie is that I think that the negotiations, the planning, you forced the three signs, and I look at simply another 46 square feet as a reasonable give for the city to do to get the building closer to the city, to the street, I mean. I don't really have a problem with the other 46 square feet. You could squeeze a sign down to anything. If they had 100 square feet, they could make three signs work within 100 square feet. But I think the criteria is substantial justice, and given that the applicant's been working with the city for months, I'm fine with giving them another 46 square feet. I just don't think it's that big a problem. I think it's sort of dictated by them going along with the city's desire to have the building near the street. I think that means they get more than one sign. And the size of the sign is dictated by fitness and look with the elevation of the building. So I will admit it's a close call, but I think I'll be voting yes on this.
I have to say, I like the position of the building. I miss the Chinese restaurant. I almost gave birth there. So I'm glad to see this building.
That's been long gone.
I am an architect, and having a smaller sign on the back would not drive me crazy.
I will defer to your expertise.
I'm actually quite fine with the north and the east elevations, and I sort of wish that the application had included those, because I think without them, it's just a big blank wall. I think I agree with someone's comment that the sign on the parking side, I think it was Julie, could certainly be smaller. But I would be supportive of this, including the orange elements.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what Heather just said, with the caveat that I think that, just generally speaking, there's no need to have the sign that is on the west elevation as large as the signs that are facing the right-of-ways. I think there's a way to accommodate identification on that side. I agree that it's important that it's there, but I just don't think it needs to be as large as it is. So I think as it's currently presented in front of us, I'm going to be voting no, because we're not considering the artwork illustrations. But I think that I would be open to seeing something else that did have that in there. I think those are more important than the sign that we see on the west being the size that it is.
Dave?
I'm torn on this, and I'm swayed by Julie's argument, which others commented about, and Todd makes a good point that this developer has made accommodations to move the building closer to the street, to accommodate planning and requiring, as they see it, signage on 2 additional sides of the building. However, I'm disinclined to, I think being closer to the street means a smaller sign is gonna be easier to see by people driving. It's not at the back of the parking lot, for example. And I think they can accomplish one of the signs is 78 something square feet. So 2 signs at 80 square feet is 160. If they put something half that size on the west side to accommodate the people that are, anybody coming to that parking lot knows where they're going to LA Fitness. So just having a smaller sign there, and you're within the 200, I don't think they need the logo. That doesn't say who you are. So I think they can meet their needs within the 200 square feet. And even though I see some potential accommodation need, or as a kind of a cooperating back with them for working with the city on moving to the street. I'm gonna have to vote no on this because I think they can meet their needs within the 200 square feet.
Kirk?
I'll just echo what Dave said. This one was a struggle, just because it's always great to know that an investor is willing to work with staff and so on, but you know, as these centers redevelop, we're going to be getting a lot of these kinds of tensions where people feel like they have to advertise on all sides, and it's close for me, but I feel like they could comply because the people who are parking to go there don't need to know that they're there as much as people driving by. So, and I don't even think people do an impulse exercise either. So, but I'm also torn at these, you know, I'm struggling with these graphics too, because I think those are compelling. So I know it's not what we're talking about tonight, but I'm hopeful that something can be accommodated so that adds some texture to the building there.
Make a motion.
Heather, do you have a question or comment?
I'm just wondering, since I think that the petitioner did say that had they known the orange elements would be considered signage, they would have included that in their request. I guess again, I'll ask if they would perhaps consider tabling it and coming back with
The more complete application, you're saying that includes all of the signage?
Can I ask a question? So, and again, I don't mean to step out of line here, but, so if the 40 square feet just for the signage, if those windows went away, 40 square feet additional signage over the 200 doesn't warrant an approval, and everybody's turning it down. Yet, if it was 100 square feet of the graphics, that you're willing to consider.
Right, that's how I don't understand.
Okay. And
That would be a bigger ask, right?
Well,
it would be a bigger ask.
It would be
Yeah.
contingent on where it's located is the question.
yeah.
Gary's
I guess. Right?
What's
And
that?
could it be,
Anywhere
or-
on you can see it. It's considered a
So
sign.
Mike's
Big.
question.
I don't mind,
But
Go ahead, yeah.
just for the sake of
As
this
far as I'm
transcriber, you should
concerned,
probably call
we
it.
applied for a sign permit. Those were not
So go ahead,
rejected.
Mike.
Okay, so my question is,
Staff never determined.
if they decide to reconsider and come back to us with a different ask, could our approval of the variance be contingent on what the signage is and where it's located?
No, we can't, we can't dictate where they put it, except if it doesn't meet the code requirements. Like, you can't say, we want it on the roof, but that would violate the ordinance, because you can't have a roof sign. So you can't, as a board, can't say, we want it here and we want it, this type of sign. They're bound within the 200 square feet, and that's what they get. So we can't say, we prefer this sign, so you just.
Got it. Yep, understood.
If I could ask
Well,
our
we're in
tenant a
closed
question.
session.
Gary, would you be comfortable with tabling the item and coming back to the next meeting
don't
with a
think we
revised package with more detail, as was suggested by one of the board members?
Well, this is the first time we've heard that graphic is considered signage and is being rejected. So that's my.
You may have not gotten an email from me, but I did send out an email the day after we met and told them that it was graphic, so I got that email.
It was signed?
I think the question, though, Gary, with all due respect, is would we consider tabling the item and coming back?
If we can't get the graphics, then
Kirk,
we can't
did you-
get the building.
I just want to clarify, just so we don't, again, infer something that may or may not get approved in the future. So, John, if I can just ask, when we approve a variance for square footage for total sign coverage, once we make that approval, they're allowed to put it, this doesn't matter, right? Like, is that what you're
Well,
saying? Because
we
what
would
I'm.
hope, we would hope that they would submit their application per submitted plans, and with good faith that that's what their application was, and that's what we want to hold them to.
So I guess I'm hearing a mix of things, and I just want to see if this comports with what people are saying. I personally, and this is just me, I mean, it sounds like some people like the, the art. It's a sign, but we're calling it icons. And may be willing to be flexible for that kind of signage, but not so much spending it all on the west. But are you saying that we shouldn't advise them to come back with something like that because it might change again when they come with the final plans or the construction?
I think we can't alter their variance request. They're asking for 46 extra square feet over the 200, and I think that's what we need to decide on tonight, as it sits before us. If they can always come back next month with a new package.
But I guess it's important to me as a board member to know whether or not what I'm voting on is in good faith with what is shown.
What you're voting on is to whether allow them to have a 46 square foot increase over the 200 square feet.
Understood.
So they may come back with 5 elevations in that 246.
Understood.
Yeah. So you're just allowing them to, it's basically 200 or 246.
My vote, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
My vote as to whether or not to table this, though, might be impacted by that question. I don't know if I've gotten a clear answer on it.
Well, I really don't want to table. I don't want to get in that habit of tabling things because they're difficult. What I want to do is make a decision, and then if the applicant doesn't agree with the decision, they can always come back and reapply. They have that opportunity. I'm not a fan of tabling things. I'd like to make a decision tonight, here, now, and then we move forward.
Okay.
John, you have a wimpy board.
Dave?
I made my case for why I'll vote no on this, but I just want to state that if we vote no and turn this down, and then they come back and say, okay, we want 100-foot variance, but look at these nice, beautiful art pieces we're asking for, and then we give them the 100 feet, they can put whatever they want, because what we're giving them is a variance on the amount of signage. So that, I don't think when we pass this variance, and we shouldn't be in the position of saying, oh, this amount of excess is okay because we like the design, but this amount of excess isn't okay because we don't like that design. So we have to, I think, hold ourselves to say, do they need this excess space for what they're conveying in terms of bringing people to their, to make their message of what's on the building? And I don't think they do. And I mean, they could take the 200 square feet that they're allowed now and put those 2 beautiful running people on there without the LA Fitness, and be one of these hipster places that people are attracted to without having a label on it.
Nightcap on Main Street.
But I think they can give their message with the LA Fitness, as I laid out in my first argument, within the 200 feet.
Heather?
Forgive me, I'm still confused. So we're voting on 46 square feet. We're not, and they can use those 46 square feet to do whatever they want.
Right.
Correct.
We're not voting on these particular signs.
No.
Okay. Given the better location, I guess I'm fine with approving that. So I will be approving if this comes to a vote.
I'll make the motion.
Are we done?
We're still confused.
Maybe I should just stop. I understand what Dave's saying, and if it really is as simple as, okay, we have to consider whether or not 46 feet is enough to meet the needs of or it is I think we all know
If it's
what the
necessary.
46 is necessary or not. But I think that the submission of plans is important in consideration of that. And I think that there is a part to play by viewing the plans and reviewing them and making a judgment on that.
But please remember that signs aren't permanent fixtures.
Yeah.
This could go away, and in 2 years, Mike's Tavern might be there.
Yeah, and Mike's Tavern gets to a 46.
Right.
Yep.
So I can't control the content of these signs. There might be a swimming diver,
Yeah.
and you might not like that. So we gotta keep it within the parameters of the square footage.
Understood.
I can't control the content of the signs.
And just, could I?
True, yeah.
From the planning commission perspective, while the petitioner definitely thinks that they gave a lot, I think that in the planning commission felt that the city gave some too. So this is not, remember, you're hearing one side, and that's absolutely valid, because that's their business model.
Right.
But the planning commission approved something, and that was accepted. It wasn't contingent on down the road, we're gonna ask for a lot of concessions because we made this concession to move the building.
And please remember,
So-
during the site plan process, the site plan approval process, the sign is not part of the consideration. It may be on the elevations when they're submitted with the package, but the planning commission and city council aren't reviewing that portion of the application. Signs are not part of the approval package.
Okay. Can I make a
Just for
motion?
that same reason I just stated earlier, because
Yep.
they can change. And so say they were approved as part of the site plan process, if the business was to change and the signs were to change, then we'd be amending that site plan constantly.
Got it.
Okay, I'll make a motion. Petition ZBA 17-033, 155 North Maple Road. Chapter 61 variance. Based on the following findings of fact and in accordance with the established standards for approval, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby grants a 46 square foot variance from Chapter 61, Section 5:502. 1. Exterior business signs. The subject business will install 3 sets of 40-inch illuminated channel letters. A, that the alleged hardships or practical difficulties or both are peculiar to the property of the person requesting the variance and result from conditions which do not exist generally throughout the city. B, that allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done considering the public benefits intended to be secured by this chapter, the individual hardships that will be suffered by a failure of the board to grant a variance, and the rights of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of the variance.
Your motion, do you have support? Support from Kirk. Mike Daniel.
No.
Dave.
No.
Mike Dobner.
No.
Todd.
Yes.
Heather.
Yes.
Julie.
No.
Kirk.
No.
I also vote no. The request is denied. Moving on to new business, unfinished business, reports and communications. We're into public commentary. Is there anyone else to speak on any item that was not on the agenda? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? From Kirk, support from Julie, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.